Let me ask you something real. What happens when the noise stops? No texts, no plans, no distractions, just you and silence. For most men, that silence is terrifying, not because it's loud, but because it's honest. That's the moment when the world stops choosing you, and you're left wondering if you even matter. And society? It taught you that if you're alone, you must be failing. If no one is texting, calling, needing you, then maybe something's wrong with you. But what if that's a lie? What if silence isn't the end, but the beginning? The beginning of something powerful, something unshakable. Because here's the truth no one tells you. The man who learns to sit with silence becomes unstoppable. See the silence you're avoiding? That's not your enemy. That's your mirror. It doesn't judge, it doesn't flatter. It reflects. And in that reflection, you see everything you've been running from and everything you're capable of becoming. So before you reach for your phone, before you chase another distraction, pause, lean in. This silence might just be the most important conversation of your life. Let me tell you a hard truth most men never hear. The strongest version of you won't be found in a crowd. It will be built in silence, in solitude, when no one's watching and no one's clapping. See, we live in a world that teaches men to seek attention, to chase validation, likes, messages, applause, approval. But real power, it begins the moment you stop needing to be seen. Because the man who walks alone by choice isn't lost. He's refining. He's not chasing noise. He's building discipline. He's not seeking approval. He's mastering himself. But here's the catch. Walking alone isn't easy. It means letting go of comfort, letting go of the need to be understood, admired, or constantly reassured. And most men, they're too scared to take that path. They think being alone means they're behind, that something must be wrong with them. But the ones who embrace solitude, they start to see something the world can't see yet. Focus sharpens, standards rise, purpose gets clearer. They stop living to be chosen and start choosing themselves. So if you're in a season where life feels quiet, lean into it. You're not being forgotten, you're being forged. Here's something most men never admit. Silence scares the hell out of us. Not because it's loud, but because it's honest. When the notifications stop, when the room is quiet, when there's no one lying next to you in bed, that's when the real battle begins. Not with the world, but with yourself. Because in that stillness, everything you buried starts to rise. The regrets, the missed chances, the insecurities you pretend don't exist. That girl who left, that job you never had the guts to go after, that version of you that you swore you'd become, but never did. And so what do most men do? They run from one relationship to the next, from one distraction to another, not because they want more, but because they can't face the silence. But here's the truth. Silence isn't your enemy. It's your mirror. And it asks you one brutal, unfiltered question. Who are you really? Are you proud of the man you've become? That's the moment that separates the ones who evolve from the ones who escape. So if silence is knocking, open the door. What's behind it might be painful, but it's also where your transformation begins. Let's clear something up. Real growth doesn't happen in the gym. It doesn't happen at networking events or in your favorite self-help podcast either. It happens in silence, when it's just you and the weight you've been avoiding. Because true transformation doesn't begin when life feels good. It begins when it gets quiet and uncomfortable. That's when your mind turns on you. It starts throwing everything at you. The memories you buried, the self-doubt you hid behind success, the pain you masked with distractions. Your ego screams, your insecurities rise, and every part of you wants to escape. But if you stay, if you hold the line just a little longer, something incredible happens. The noise fades, the chaos settles. And for the first time, you see clearly. You're not the regret. You're not the missed opportunity. You're not the pain that happened to you. You're the man who stayed, who didn't run, who faced the darkness, and didn't blink. And in a world that teaches men to chase more, prove more, talk more, being the one who stays in silence takes courage most will never understand. But that's where strength is born. In the fire you don't flee from. So the next time silence shows up, don't flinch. That's your growth calling. Let me be honest with you. Most men today are addicts, not to alcohol, not to drugs, but to something far more common and just as dangerous: approval. We wake up and check our phones. Did she text back? We post something online and obsess. Did anyone like it? We walk into a room and scan faces, silently asking, do they like me? It feels harmless, but here's the truth. It's a trap. When your self-worth is built on someone else's reaction, you've already given away your power. You start saying what people want to hear. You tolerate things you hate just to be accepted. You hold back your truth to avoid conflict. And slowly, piece by piece, you disappear. You're liked by many, but known by no one, not even yourself. That's the cost of chasing approval. You become a stranger to your own voice. But what if you let go of that addiction? What if you didn't need a like to feel enough? Didn't need a reply to feel seen? That's when everything shifts. You stop performing. You start leading. And the man who no longer needs approval? He doesn't just walk differently, he lives freely. Something powerful happens the moment you stop chasing approval. You start showing up as the real you. You stop replying instantly just to look interested. You stop reshaping your truth to avoid uncomfortable moments. You stop apologizing for having boundaries. And the crazy part? That's when people actually start noticing you. Not because you're louder, not because you're trying harder, but because you're moving with something most people lack: self-respect. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when everything in your gut screamed no? How often have you kept people in your life simply because you were afraid to be alone? That's the trap of approval. But once you break free from it, you realize you don't need permission to feel worthy. You don't need validation to be powerful. And you sure as hell don't need to explain your peace to people who never gave it to you. You start walking away from the wrong people, not out of anger, but out of alignment. You begin filtering your circle, not by who accepts you, but by who respects you. Because here's the truth. When you no longer need to be chosen, you become unforgettable. Here's something most people will never understand. The most respected man in the room isn't the one who tries to be liked. It's the one who stands for something, even if it makes others uncomfortable. We've been conditioned to believe that being agreeable means being good, that silence in conflict means wisdom, that bending your values makes you more lovable. But here's the truth. Approval might get you attention, but conviction earns you respect. The man who speaks less but means every word, the one who doesn't explain every decision but stands by it anyway, that man leaves a mark. And let's be real, this isn't easy. When you start detoxing from approval, it stings. You feel the withdrawal. You want to be understood. You want everyone to agree with you. But slowly that pain fades, and it's replaced by something rare: peace, freedom, inner strength. You stop reacting. You stop proving. You stop apologizing for being grounded. And in a world obsessed with noise and validation, a man who moves quietly, with clarity and confidence, doesn't get overlooked. He gets remembered. So if you're in the process of letting go of being liked, stay with it. Because you're not losing approval, you're gaining yourself. You know when clarity finally shows up? When the world goes quiet, not when you're distracted, not when you're surrounded by noise, opinions, or pressure, but in stillness, when the phone's off, the room's silent, and you finally get to hear something most men never do: your own voice. For the first time, you start asking the real questions. What do I truly want? What matters to me, not to them? Am I living by choice or by default? That's when the fog lifts. That's when you realize how much of your life was built on other people's expectations. The job you took to feel successful, the lifestyle you adopted to fit in, the relationship you held on to out of fear. But when you finally get still, you begin to sort the noise from the truth. You stop chasing what looks good and start choosing what feels right. You start letting go of things, people, habits that don't align anymore. Not out of rebellion, out of precision, because clarity isn't loud, it whispers. And the men who hear it, they don't live for applause, they live aligned. There's a shift that happens when you finally distance yourself from the noise. You start moving with intention, not out of pressure, not to be seen, but because every step you take now comes from clarity. You no longer waste time explaining your choices to people who were never meant to understand them. You don't need validation for your boundaries. You don't need applause for your peace. And here's the beauty of it. Once you step out of the chaos, the toxic becomes obvious. The people who drain you, you spot them quicker. The conversations that once excited you now feel shallow. The highs that used to hook you, likes, praise, momentary pleasure, start to lose their grip. Because once you've tasted real stillness, temporary thrill just doesn't satisfy anymore. You realize how easily you used to be manipulated by attention, approval, emotion, but not anymore. Now you lead your life, not your moods. You follow your mission, not someone's reaction. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's stepping into a mindset where your energy, time, and focus are protected. And when you live like that, quiet, deliberate, grounded, you don't need to shout to be powerful. Your presence says everything. Spend enough time alone, and something powerful starts to happen. You stop craving attention, you stop chasing approval, and instead you start seeking something deeper. Peace, purpose, progress. You no longer measure your value by who claps for you, who compliments you, or who decides to choose you. Because the truth is, once you've sat with your own silence long enough, you begin to see things clearly. That clarity, it makes you unshakable. You become harder to influence, harder to manipulate, harder to guilt into shrinking yourself. Because now you're not trying to impress, you're trying to align. You no longer move to be accepted. You move because it's aligned with your direction. And when you do that, something strange happens. You speak less, but when you do, people listen. Not because you're loud, but because your words carry weight. And that's the shift, from living for applause to living with precision. So ask yourself, are you still waiting for others to agree with your path? Or have you already decided that you're enough, even if no one understands where you're going? Because when a man knows who he is, he doesn't need to be liked. He just needs to be clear. There's a certain kind of man who doesn't need to explain himself. He doesn't post to prove. He doesn't seek permission to pursue his path. Why? Because he knows exactly who he is and what he's building. See, the greatest gift of solitude is this. It burns away the unnecessary, the distractions, the insecurities, the approval seeking, and what's left is you, clear, grounded, unshakable. Most people are terrified of silence, but the man who leans into it, he starts hearing something deeper. Not noise, not doubt, but direction. So if your life feels quiet right now, don't rush to fill it. Don't chase more likes, more invites, more attention. What you need isn't out there. What you need is more of you. More stillness, more truth, more alignment. And here's the truth most won't believe. When you choose yourself long enough, life starts choosing you back. Opportunities begin to find you. The right people show up. The wrong ones fade away. Not because you forced it, but because your energy became undeniable. You don't have to be loud to be seen. You just have to be real. So keep walking. Keep choosing yourself. And let the world adjust to your frequency, not the other way around. Let me leave you with this. When a man knows who he is and what he's building, he doesn't need to explain himself. He simply lives it. And that alone is more powerful than any argument, any status, or any performance. So if your world feels quiet right now, don't panic. That's silence. It's not a void to be filled. It's a signal, a doorway, an invitation to hear what's always been whispering underneath the noise. You were never meant to be someone else's version of enough. You were meant to build your life from the inside out, rooted, solid, clear. So stop trying to impress. Stop trying to be chosen. And most of all, stop trying to outrun yourself. Sit still, listen, and choose you. Because when you do it long enough, something incredible happens. Life starts rising to meet you, not the version you faked, not the one you tried to edit for approval, but the real one. The man who doesn't chase attention because he already has direction. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Choose yourself again and again until the world has no choice but to follow.